Well, this was a complete surprise this morning. We jumped in over here in the native garden and doing a little bit of work over here. We've got a lot of plants to put in here, and we've got a big grouping of perennials over there that need to be distributed in here. I've got to take down the Chinese privet. That's happening in the next couple of days, but we're planting a few things this morning, and we put down these wood chips last year and put them down very deep. With 2 loads of wood chips for this elongated garden space here, and it just was very dry last spring, and they just didn't break down a whole lot. And then we've been on and off dry through the winter time. And the last time I dug a hole over here was a couple months back or whatever. We transplanted one plant over here, and I dug down and hit a gravel layer just like I had been, where you just couldn't break through it hardly, and then it was dry at the bottom of the hole. This morning, with just a little bit of warm weather this spring, the engine has turned on rather rapidly, and this stuff is breaking down very quickly now, which is what I want. I kind of want the wood chips as my temporary thing, and then I want them gone so that then I can use whatever regular decorative mulch or whatever. I actually just would like to have this all covered up in plants ultimately and use very little mulch or organic material. I did redo the paths this morning. We had gotten a load of wood chips, and we have an interconnected path system. If you're following along with the channel, I'll put the drone up in the next few days for another video, and you can see how once the paths are down here, you can see how everything is kind of interconnected, and you can navigate through the garden. The wood chip paths are about 6 inch, about this deep, and they'll pack down. By the time people are here for our open garden event, they'll be half that. And it's a great place that stores water, all those things. I've talked about it quite a bit, but I did get the paths reestablished here so we can start planting and really turning this into an interesting space. But in the process, I started digging down, and lo and behold, there's actual things happening here. There's unfortunately, I just chopped that earthworm, but I didn't mean to. Sorry about that. But just showing off, there are worms moving through here now. All of a sudden, all of this is really quite, I can do this with it now. This area had been parked on and driven on. It was part of a, believe it or not, there was a plant nursery here at one time. We live off of Fowler Road, and there's a nursery called Fowler's Nursery. Still in business. They're down in Clayton, North Carolina. But at one time, they were literally here. And either they gravelled this or the city gravelled this, I don't know. And then it was parked on and had all kinds of compaction. And it is really terribly compact. But look at that. As soon as I go into the wood chips now, there's a whole new layer that exists. And that's, how many months? It was February of last year, right, Steph? So it's been 13 months. I think 13 months since that original video went up with us putting wood chips out here. But I'm just kind of blown away, just like that. How fast that's actually happened. So excited that it looks like we can just get on with it out here this spring, and the soil is kind of greatly improved. These plants won't have to sit on some sort of weird hard pan and try to wing it. Planted a few things this morning. We planted this Atlantic white cedar. This is Chamaecyparis dioides. These are native in disjunct populations, meaning space between the populations, from Maine all the way down the East Coast and over to kind of Mississippi. And you'll find them typically in kind of boggy, acid soil spaces. And it would prefer to be in moist conditions. This plant can actually be used in creating wet spaces in your own garden, or if you have some sort of space where you're trying to prevent water from leaving the garden, this is the plant for you. At the bottom of this, though, everything we do here, the water comes in this general direction. So this is a definite moist spot. So I think it'll be fine here as an ornamental plant, but it does. This is one we won't let get really, really dry. It was super root bound, so I had to really work on the roots on that plant to get it in the ground. Another interesting thing, I think most of the Pieris, we have Pieris back here in the other garden, Pieris japonica, but we actually have native species of Pieris as well. And this was Filarifolia, which is a super interesting one. It has if you come in here, it has the flowers on it just like you would see. And as they mature, they get quite a few more flowers and a little bit bigger than this. There's the flowers that you would typically see, you know, on a pieris. And you can see how they dangle down like that. That is pretty typical of a lot of flowering things in the ericaceous family, or the heath family. Some people call it the heath family, the rhododendron family. Depends on where you are on the planet. You call it the blueberry family if you have blueberries near you. That's one of those. The ericaceae is like wherever you live on the planet, there are ericaceous plants. They typically live in peat bogs. They're the plants that are able to really get into a spot before other things can. They tend to have mycorrhizal relationships that allow them to survive in pretty lean spaces, and so that's where we typically find blueberries, azaleas, rhododendrons, you know, all the things that are in this kind of family of plants. But they're all super interesting, and a lot of them have this little bell-shaped upside down flower. The coolest thing about this one is in the wild, it can be a little low mounding shrub until it has the opportunity to actually attach to something, and then it becomes a vining plant, and it actually has the ability to vine under the bark of plants. And so there are several plants that this plant will attach itself to, and the white cedar happens to be one of them. We got these three, believe it or not, from Buddy Lee, who's been selecting these to be more shrubby and less viney, trying to make them ornamental, turn them into ornamental plants. I suspect, though, if it has the opportunity to grab onto something, it'll grab onto it just like it always would have. There's a lot of new growth coming out on these. We got these, when did we get these? A few months back, right? I mean, we've had these through the entire winter.
Mid-November.
Yeah, mid-November, and so they're ready to go in the ground for sure. But these are two plants that in the southeast actually have a relationship together. I don't know that this one likes the relationship it has with this plant, but it'll get that new red growth on it. And this is another one that likes kind of acid soils and moist, typically moist conditions. But this soil is incredibly improved over here in the native garden. I need to say that my buddy Sean gave us that Atlantic white cedar. He was a really great plantsman. We've had him on video at Adcock's Nursery in the past. Sean, really top plantsman. He's worked at a few nurseries in the Johnston County area. I've known him for a long time, and he's just one of those people that's just top horticulture people in the area, and we'll get him on camera at some point. But he's got a lot of interest in native plants as well as working in an ornamental nursery with, you know, whatever going out of the ornamental nursery. Buddy Lee had given us this white berrying Calocarpa americana, or American beautyberry. There's a ton of species of beautyberries in the world. We have just a few here in North America, lots of them in Asia. Most of the marketing around new varieties that are out in the world are mostly Asian species, Asian crosses, that kind of thing. The bees don't seem to care, and the birds don't seem to care, if we're being completely honest, but this is our native to the southeast. This is a white berrying form that he had given us. It was out by the front gate, and we moved it back here last year. Again, we were putting it in very dry conditions in 8 inches of wood chips that would defying all logic for breaking down last year. Like, they normally just go super fast here in Raleigh, just because we get a little bit of regular rainfall and enough heat to just cook this, to get this engine going and get these microbial activity to break this stuff down, and it just didn't. So it struggled a bit last year, but it's coming. It's gonna just come out of that just flying as fast as it can. If you remember video when we got back in November, when we got those pieris that are over there from Buddy, he also gave us 4 Calocarpa americana selections with crazy colors on there. There was one that was like a magenta color, one that was like black, one that was like a neon blue color. It was really wacky blue color. I put those 4 around this white one, so we're just going to grow them all in one mass here and see what this looks like with all these crazy colors of berries. You would think that white form would, or some other form would deter birds or bees or whatever, but we've had, I think the first 2 years it was out by the fence, and it was normal growth and normal everything. The birds came in and just wiped it clean. They'll just, with the day they decide to come in and grab them, they just grabbed them all. the berries are still on it from this past year. I think that the plant was just in a sort of a weird state overall. What's been a ton of fun with this native project so far is how many people have donated to it. I mean, it's been absolutely amazing. Everywhere we've gone, somebody's wanted to share a native plant that they love and or have grown themselves. It's kind of fun. We're actually heading to an incredible native plant nursery and in a few weeks, and you guys, I think, will be blown away. I've been told by plantsmen that we're blown away. So we're looking forward to that. Friends of ours over in Tennessee that we're going to be visiting. But as an example of the generosity that people have had, this sable palmetto here, palm that's in front of you, was dropped off by someone who'd done the seedling in Cary, North Carolina. Matt, thank you, Matt. Dropped it off on our front porch. I happened to miss him. Didn't end up seeing him. So I hate when I miss somebody who's giving us something like that. But we'll run into him at some point again. This is a seedling from Bald Head Island that's known to be cold hardy at like juniper level in Raleigh. So a lot of times with something like that, it's about how where it originated from. Right? It survived the winter just fine, no problems. The 2 rhododendrons here were given to us by a friend named Greg Miller, who's dropped a few things off over time into the garden and donated many things to the garden over the years. So that's again, can't thank people enough for their generosity and wanting to be involved in a project where we're trying to do some interesting things in the garden. One of those interesting things is this Little King river birch that Jason Stevens gave us last year. These are the coolest little dwarf river birch, get maybe 15 feet tall or something like that, but it looks like something right out of Dr. Seuss. The taller ones of these and the ones that he has, when I showed it off at his nursery last year, it literally looks like a Dr. Seuss tree. Like you took what would ChatGPT do to a river birch if you told it to make this river birch look like it came from Dr. Seuss book. This is what it would look like. That is such an interesting plant, great new foliage, but it's on its way out. It'll have the great bark and everything we'd want from a river birch, but it won't get 40 feet tall back here in this corner. So jumping in here, we have a ton. The next project, I've got to get these perennials that we have in our little corral over here that we were trying to save them to wait for these wood chips to break down. I got to get them distributed. Other problem we have is that we have a lot of small things planted in here right now. And that's super dangerous. When something looks completely open like this does, it starts to look, we can come around here and show that stuff. So I have the paths, established. As you can see, I'm walking on it right here, but we've got small plants all over the place. And when you don't have an established path, people tend to make shortcuts through things. And so we've had a few things stepped on here or there already. Had a truck come all the way up in here to turn around and ran over a hibiscus. I mean, I don't know why he was 30 feet in here, but he was probably almost stuck. So it's about getting some definition here and saying, if I get the perennials lining the paths and I get other things lining these paths quickly, then that will put people back, on the path where they belong. And once the paths settle a bit too, I just raked them out this morning, but that's going to be an important component. I'm excited to see everything waking up. This things coming into leaf now is actually going to make this look like we've actually done something at this point. And I think by mid-April, we'll have a ton done out here. Well, by late April, we'll have a ton done out here. We're probably going to hopefully come back with plants from Tennessee for this as well. And then by the time anybody's here in June for the open garden, this will be full on. We're super excited about that. So thank you guys so much for following along with this. I do have a playlist for the native garden here. And so if you're just interested in this as part of the content and how this space develops over time, we're on the hunt out in the world for some interesting, unique things, trying not to use the same 20 or 30 native plants that kind of show up in most of the design and plans that we see where native gardens are being established, and hopefully open up that world a little bit more than just those few things. So thank you guys so much for following along with it.